Hello and welcome to BloombergQuint. You're watching The Fine Print. A shift to an organized logistics sector, consolidation of warehouses, lower logistics cost and boost to express cargo operators. Rating agency ICRA envisages all these changes once the goods and services tax regime kicks in. To talk about all these changes and the impact on the logistics sector, on the GST countdown today, I have with me Subrata Ray, Senior Group Vice President at ICRA. Subrata, welcome to the show. You've pointed out in your report that GST will trigger a shift to an organized logistics sector. Why do you say that?
So basically, if you see today, the logistics segment is highly fragmented. Also, from the manufacturing sector, the primary use of logistics is from manufacturing sector. First, the goods are sent to warehouses, and from warehouses, it goes to smaller distributors, and then eventually reaches the end retailer. Now, the logic of setting up warehouses today, the location depends on both the demand aspect as well as the taxation aspect. So clearly, if you are setting up warehouses in a single city, and as you transfer the goods to another state, you have to pay additional GST of 2%.
Right. For the benefit of viewers, let me just also lay out the existing regime and correct me if I'm wrong somewhere. That currently between interstate supplies there is a central sales tax of about 2%, and the logic of setting up these warehouses in each state is that CST won't apply because transfer from a warehouse to a warehouse interstate is considered as a stock transfer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So today the major incentive for setting up multiple warehouses across locations, across demand centers, is to ensure that you don't end up paying higher taxes.
Sure.
But post GST, as this transfer tax gets subsumed in the overall GST, so the economic logic will come into play. So we don't expect consolidation to happen immediately, but over a period of time we expect the number of warehouses to come down. We will have bigger warehouses in a more centralized location, and the location of the warehouse would be purely decided by economic considerations, and the number of warehouses will come down. From warehouses to distributors, there will be a fresh round of transport which will be happening, so you will have a more number of outlets going out from centralized warehouses to distributors and from distributors to retailers.
Subrata has very kindly given a little diagrammatic representation of pre-GST and post-GST to us. Can you take me through what's happening here, Subrata, and how do you see this changing once GST kicks in?
In the pre-GST regime, if a manufacturer is located in one state, he will be setting up warehouses in multiple locations in each state. So you will have, we have shown visually 3 warehouses. Actually, you will have multiple warehouses across various states, at least definitely in various geographies, central, western, north and south, and also maybe in multiple other states. Now the goods are transported by the manufacturer. From manufacturer to warehouses it goes, that's a stock transfer, and then from warehouses to distributors and retailers further down. So typically the transportation would be happening through a full truckload system from manufacturer to warehouse, and then from warehouses to distributor and retailer in less than truckload format by the subsequent transportation hub. Now post implementation of GST, we expect the number of warehouses to get consolidated eventually to 1 or 2 large warehouses. So the number of warehouses will come down. At the same time, the quantum of goods that is getting transported will increase significantly. So single warehouse will be handling much larger quantum of good. So effectively you will have much bigger trucks and possibly carrying over a longer distance between manufacturer to warehouses. So you will see higher tonnage trucks being used, and you will also possibly see operating efficiencies coming in because of scale economics. From warehouses to distributors and retailers, the chain will become wider, because from a single warehouse now the goods will get distributed to many number of distributors. So this segment can be handled depending on the type of goods or the nature of the goods by less than truckload or full truckload, and distributor to retailer obviously would be less than truckload segment.
Sure. Subrata, this terminology might be new for some of our viewers. Explain to me how FTL and LTL differ in the services they offer, and is there going to be a change, or rather do you envisage a change in how these services are used post GST?
Yeah. See, ideally trucks would be like to operate in a full truckload mode, basically use the entire truck capacity for a single goods and between transportation between one location to another, because that helps you achieve the full efficiency.
So that much more goods in a particular sort of round are getting transferred.
Yeah.
Sure.
But when you are transferring lesser quantum of goods. It is not possible to get a full truckload, so you will be typically using a smaller truck, but even then it will be less than truckload situation. So you will be transferring goods, smaller lots, less than truckload between shorter distances, and while for longer distances and for larger goods you will be carrying full truckload.
Sure.
So post GST, the manufacturer to warehouse transportation will get highly consolidated, and that the tonnage segment will go up significantly, and full truckload trucks will be operating in this segment.
Okay, but wasn't it happening here as well?
Yeah, but there are multiple warehouses, so there was a little bit of distribution of load.
Sure.
So one in various product categories, one was not able to use very large capacity trucks, and secondly, even the distances were smaller.
Right.
Larger trucks typically gives the best operating efficiency when you operate over a longer distance and carrying the maximum quantity of goods.
Sure. Okay, you've laid out for us how the movement will work post GST. What will determine companies' strategy now to set up these warehouses? You mentioned that the type of good or the demand would be other. Could you take me through some of the other factors as well?
So typically the warehouse locations now would be entirely decided by logistics economics, and also we believe that a lot more investment in technology will happen. So you will have larger trucks operating. You will also see the warehouses will get consolidated, so the warehouses will use much greater amount of technology in terms of labeling, tracking and other activities. So overall and also there will be cold chains. Investments happening in cold chains. So we expect the investments in the logistics segment to move up the value chain, and greater degree of investments to happen in terms of technology.
Okay, all right. You've also pointed out in your report that cargo operators express cargo operators will benefit in the GST regime versus maybe the good transport agencies. Help me again with what do these two services, what are the kind of services they provide, and how again it will change once GST.
Actually, it is not exactly benefit. Earlier there was a little bit of difference in terms of taxation. So the express cargo operators were ending up paying a slightly higher amount of incurring a higher amount of taxation
because of lack of abatement there.
Because of lack of abatement. Because now with the input tax credit coming in, now that difference will go. So effectively the GTA operators and express cargo operators now will have similar kind of tax incidence.
So when do I hire a GTA versus an express
cargo operator? Typically when time critical services, when you have to provide certain critical goods in a fixed timeline, maybe 24 hours, 36 hours, that is the time you use express cargo operators. And also what was happening is that for many small transporters, while they could be possibly offering express cargo operations in the unorganized segment, they were registering themselves at GTA just to avail of the tax advantage.
Okay. So that differentiation goes now.
Will go, yeah.
And anyway, I think on transport the incidence of rate is at what, 5% from the current 4.5%?
Yeah, for GTA it is 5%. For express cargo it is 15%. But if you use the abatement, then it effectively comes to about similar 5% number.
All right. So while the GTAs are where they were pre-GST, the express cargo operators will now have that same level playing field as far as tax goes.
Yeah,
sure. Subrata, the other sort of efficiency that everybody is envisaging in the GST regime is due to these e-way bills, right?
Yeah.
Help me understand again, how will it work from the point where the manufacturing facility is to the point where goods are getting delivered, and also do you see any challenges in this process?
Yeah, see, one of the biggest operating inefficiencies creep in logistics is because of the checkposts. So at every checkpost, if a good is transported from say Delhi to south in Chennai, so he has to go through across states multiple checkposts, and each checkpost there is a time spent in terms of clearing his goods. And typically the estimate is that the time wastage could be in the range of between 20 to 30%. So the expectation is that post GST, as one is number of the state level taxes come down, so the requirement to do border checks will come down, and at the same time if the e-way bill is used properly in terms of proper digitization is used, in that case the time spent on check post can come down significantly. However, there are question marks in terms of operational aspect, because the requirement of having check post or having physical checks hasn't totally gone away as per GST. So we have to actually see how it pans out during the implementation phase, and if during implementation actual amount of time spent on check post continues to be as in the past, then I think the advantages of GST in terms of gaining operating efficiency will be reduced significantly.
Okay, you also mentioned that you envisage technological changes in the way, or the digitization of e-way bills.
Yeah.
What will a e-way bill say essentially? And also these physical checks that you mentioned, do they again will happen at each state border, or do you think that it will just happen at the starting point and then at the end point?
No, looks like from the draft that the checkpoints will be there at each state.
Okay.
So to that extent, the physical checkpoints, the number of checkpoints remain as same in the past. Only thing that may change is that because of digitization, earlier you were checking entirely the physical documents. So because of digitization, the number of check requirements may come down, and in the process you might get approvals faster. But that again is a question mark, because I think you are also required to carry a physical copy of the e-bill, and so if there are physical checks happening and and if the bill remains as complicated as was in the past, then there are concerns that it might again lead to a lot of time wastages.
Okay, complications as in?
See, in each document there are multiple points which needs to be checked, and one is that at every check post the person who is checking may not be fully qualified or fully experienced in doing those checks. So in the process, if you are doing a manual check, it may take a lot of time, and also sometimes there may be trivial variations in a manual entry. So those trivial variations also may lead to hold up, or may lead to in the past people were ending up paying bribes to get through the check posts.
Right.
So a lot of times the violations was not in serious nature. It may have been some technical documentation error. So those kind of things I think government need to address. But I think it will take time, because since we are moving to a new system, one, you have to train the entire people on the ground force to how to use the new system in terms of checking, because in the initial months probably people would continue to use the similar system as they have been used to in the past. And at the same time, we would expect that depending on the actual ground level experience, the government may also come out with modifications in the process, speeding up the whole thing.
Well, here's hoping to that, Subrata.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking us through how the logistics sector will change once this new indirect tax regime kicks in. Thank you for joining us on the fine print, and thank you so much for watching.